After my wife disappeared in the park, I started receiving postcards from her, postmarked from a town that doesn't exist. Welcome to the Wilderness Protocol. There is a protocol for loss. There are stages of grief, they tell you. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. A neat, orderly path through the wilderness of sorrow. But there is no protocol for a loss that refuses to be final. There is no stage of grief that accounts for a message from the other side of gone. My name is Daniel. 4 years ago, my wife, Eleanor, walked into the Absorka-Beartooth wilderness and never walked out. The search teams found nothing. The official report lists her as lost, presumed deceased. I tried to grieve. I tried to accept. But I can't. Because every few months I receive a postcard from her. The pictures are of places I've never seen. The messages are in her beautiful, familiar handwriting. And the postmarks are all from the same place. A town called Solitude, Montana. A town that does not exist on any map. Eleanor loved the mountains. She called them her stone cathedrals. While I found my peace in the predictable grid of the city, she found hers in the chaotic, indifferent beauty of the wild. The Absorka-Beartooth was her favorite place on Earth. A vast, rugged, and profoundly empty expanse of granite peaks, alpine meadows, and deep, silent forests. She had hiked it dozens of times. She knew the trails better than she knew the streets of our own neighborhood. She was not a novice. She was not careless. The day she disappeared was supposed to be a simple, overnight solo trip. A quick recharge, as she called it. She was hiking to a place she loved. A small unnamed lake nestled in a high cirque that she called the Glass Bowl. She kissed me goodbye at the trailhead. She promised she'd call the moment she got back into cell range. She never called. The search was massive. Park rangers, search and rescue volunteers, helicopters. They scoured the area for 2 weeks. They found her tent, neatly set up by the shore of the lake. Her sleeping bag was rolled up inside. Her camp stove was clean. Her food was untouched. It was as if she had set up her camp and then simply stepped out of existence. There were no tracks leading away from the campsite. No signs of a struggle. No evidence of an animal attack. Nothing. She had vanished from a closed system. The grief was a physical thing. It was a weight that settled in my chest, making it hard to breathe. It was a constant low-grade hum of absence in our too-quiet house. For the first year I went through the motions. I accepted the condolences. I filed the paperwork. I tried to navigate the 5 neat, orderly stages of grief. But my heart refused to accept the presumed part of her fate. Without a body, without a story, there was no closure. There was just a question mark, hanging over every moment of my life. The first postcard arrived exactly 1 year after she disappeared. I found it in my mailbox, nestled between a credit card offer and a utility bill. It was a simple, cheap-looking postcard, the kind you buy in a dusty gas station. The picture on the front was strange. It was a photograph of a dense, misty forest of pine trees, but the colors were all slightly wrong. The greens were too deep, the grays too flat. It looked like a photograph of a place that was trying to remember what a forest looked like. I turned it over. My breath caught in my throat. The handwriting was hers. Unmistakably. Her elegant, slightly slanted cursive, the way she made her E's and L's. It was like a ghost had reached out and touched my hand. The message was brief and deeply, chillingly strange. Dearest Daniel, it's so quiet here. You would hate it. The trail to the lake was different this time. It took me somewhere new. The town is small, but the people are peaceful. Tell everyone not to worry. I have found my quiet place. All my love. Eleanor. I stared at the postcard, my hands trembling. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Was this a cruel prank? Had someone found a letter she had written before her trip and decided to mail it? But then I saw the postmark. It was a clear, black, circular stamp. It read, Solitude, Montana, 59000. And the date was from 2 days prior. I immediately went to my computer. I am a researcher by trade. I know how to find information. I search for Solitude, Montana. Nothing. I searched for the zip code. It didn't exist. I cross-referenced old maps, historical archives, ghost town registries. The town of Solitude, Montana had never existed. I took the postcard to the post office. The postal worker, a kind, patient woman, looked at the stamp. She scanned it. "That's not one of ours," she said, frowning. "The design is wrong. And this zip code, it's not in the system. I'm sorry, I don't know how this got to you. It shouldn't have been processed." It was a message from nowhere. A letter from a ghost, mailed from a town that didn't exist. I showed it to the police. I showed it to the park rangers who had led the search. They were all polite but dismissive. They saw the postcard through the lens of my grief. They thought I was hallucinating, that I had created it myself, a product of a mind unwilling to accept the finality of loss. Or worse, that it was a cruel, heartless prank. They filed a report, but I knew they wouldn't investigate. It was a dead end, a phantom clue. I tried to believe them. I tried to believe it was a prank. It was easier than believing the alternative. I put the postcard in a drawer and tried to forget. The second one arrived 3 months later. This time, the picture was of a single, massive mountain peak, its summit shrouded in a strange, purple-hued cloud. Again, the colors were wrong. The light was flat and lifeless. I turned it over, my heart pounding. Her handwriting. "My dearest D. The mountain is called the Silent Sentinel. The locals say it watches over the town. There are no birds here. I miss the sound of birds. The quiet is very full. The stars are different. I tried to find Orion last night, but the patterns are all wrong. I am well. I am peaceful. I hope you are finding your own peace. Yours always, E." The postmark was the same. Solitude, Montana, 59000. The dam of my denial broke. This was not a prank. A prankster might send one card. But 2? 3 months apart? And the details, the wrong stars, the lack of birds, they were too specific, too strange. This was a continuing communication. And it meant one of two things. Either my wife was alive, trapped in some remote, unmapped, cult-like community that called itself Solitude, or I was losing my mind. I chose to believe the former. It was the only option that allowed for hope. And hope is a powerful, dangerous fuel. I began my own investigation. I became obsessed. I spent my nights and weekends scouring the internet for any mention of solitude. I joined online communities of people searching for the missing, of people who had experienced strange phenomena in national parks. I read every book, every article, every crackpot theory about disappearances in the Absaroka-Beartooth Range. Most of what I found was useless. But then in a dusty, forgotten corner of an online forum dedicated to geographical anomalies, I found a single, cryptic post from 6 years prior. It was from a user named Trailfinder73. The post read, "Has anyone ever heard of the Almanac of Unfound Places? My grandfather was a surveyor for the USGS in the 50s. He had this old leather-bound book, full of hand-drawn maps of places that aren't on any official chart. Towns that vanished. Valleys that only appear at certain times of the year. He had one map, I remember, of a place in the Beartooths, a town called Stillwater or Sanctuary, or something like that. He said it was a place you could only find if you were truly, hopelessly lost. And that once you found it, you couldn't leave." The post had no replies. The user had been inactive for years. But it was a lead. A fragile, ghostly thread. A place you could only find if you were lost. Eleanor had been lost. The third postcard arrived on the 2nd anniversary of her disappearance. The picture was of a small, simple wooden general store. A sign above the door read, "The Solitude Emporium." In the window, a hand-painted sign said, "Closed." The message was the most chilling yet. "Daniel, I met a man today. He says he was a hiker too. He got lost a long time ago. He seems happy here. He says the quiet takes away the pain. He says he doesn't remember his old name anymore. He says it's better that way. Sometimes I think he's right. It's getting harder to remember your face. That last line was a knife in my heart. She was forgetting me. This place, this solitude. It wasn't just hiding her. It was erasing her. I had to find her. I had to get her out before she was gone completely. I looked at the 3 postcards spread out on my kitchen table. The forest, the mountain, the general store. They were clues. And I looked at the postmarks. Solitude, empty. The location wasn't just a name. It was a state of being. And the only way to find it, according to the mysterious forum post, was to become what she had become. I had to get lost. Truly, hopelessly lost. I began to plan my own trip into the Absorka Beartooth. It was an insane, reckless plan. I was not a skilled outdoorsman like Eleanor. But I had her old maps, her old gear. And I had a destination. I was going to a place that wasn't on any map. I was going to mail a letter to a ghost. My plan was a methodical madness. I took a leave of absence from my job. I spent a month physically conditioning myself, studying Eleanor's maps, and reading survival manuals. I was not trying to be a hero. I was trying to be a cartographer of a place that defied maps. I started my journey from the same trailhead where Eleanor had left her car. I had her pack on my back, her favorite compass in my hand. It felt like I was wearing a ghost skin. For the first few days, I followed her intended route, towards the high alpine lake she called the Glass Bowl. I found the place where the search teams had found her empty campsite. I stood there for a long time trying to feel what she had felt, to see what she had seen. The place was beautiful, but its beauty was now tainted with a profound sense of absence. This was where her story, the official story, had ended, and it was where mine had to begin. I looked at the first postcard again, the picture of the misty, wrong-colored pine forest. I compared it to the landscape around me. The trees here were mostly spruce and fir. The pines were on the other side of the ridge, in a valley the old maps called the Shadow Basin. It was a place known for its strange, unpredictable weather, and its confusing labyrinthine game trails. It was a place hikers were told to avoid. It was exactly where I needed to go. I left the trail. The moment I stepped into the untracked forest, the world changed. The sounds of other hikers, the faint sense of a human presence, vanished. I was alone, truly alone, in a way I had never been before. The forest was a deep, silent, living thing, and I was a clumsy, noisy intruder. I hiked for 2 days, pushing deeper into the Shadow Basin. The forest here matched the picture on the postcard. Towering lodgepole pines, their trunks unnaturally straight and close together, their high branches forming a dense, dark canopy that blocked out the sun. A constant, cool mist clung to the ground, even at midday. And it was here that the strangeness began. I started finding things. Objects that were out of place. I found an old, rusted tin of Prince Albert tobacco, half buried in the moss. A little further on, a single silver cufflink, engraved with the initial W. Then, a woman's tortoiseshell comb, its teeth all perfectly intact. They were like artifacts from different eras, all lost in the same small area. It was a graveyard of lost things. On the 3rd day in the basin, I saw the mountain. I crested a small ridge, and there it was, dominating the horizon. A single, sharp, monolithic peak. Its summit wreathed in a swirling purple-tinged cloud. It was the mountain from the second postcard. The Silent Sentinel. I now had 2 landmarks. I was following the postmarks. I was walking into her story. The journey towards the mountain was a descent into a slow, quiet madness. The forest became more and more disorienting. The compass needle would swing lazily, unwilling to commit to a direction. My GPS would show my position jumping by miles in a single second, then place me in the middle of a lake that didn't exist. My technology was failing, being actively rejected by the landscape. I was forced to navigate by sight alone, keeping the impossible peak of the Silent Sentinel as my only guide. The silence here was different too. It was not empty. It was curated. I realized I hadn't seen a single animal, not even a squirrel or a chipmunk, since entering the basin. I hadn't heard a single bird call. The only sounds were my own footsteps and the sound of my own, increasingly ragged, breathing. I made camp that night at the base of the mountain. I was exhausted, my body aching, but my mind was a razor-sharp wire of anxiety and anticipation. I was close. I could feel it. As I sat by my fire, I saw a light, high up on the slopes of the mountain. A faint, flickering yellow light. Like a lantern in a window. My heart pounded. Was it a cabin? A camp? Was it the town? I didn't sleep. I just watched the single, lonely light until it was extinguished just before dawn. The next morning, I began my ascent. There was no trail. It was a grueling, hand-over-hand climb through loose scree and tangled, thorny bushes. As I climbed, I noticed the rocks were changing. They were a dark, almost black, volcanic rock, and they were covered in strange, deep scratches. Not the random marks of erosion or animal claws. These were deliberate, parallel lines, like a primitive form of writing. A language I didn't understand. I reached the source of the light from the night before by mid-afternoon. It wasn't a cabin. It was a cave. A shallow, wide-mouthed cave, its entrance partially obscured by a curtain of ancient, hanging moss. And inside the cave there was a single, small, unadorned wooden table and 2 chairs. On the table was a half-finished game of checkers. And sitting on one of the chairs was a skeleton. It was dressed in the tattered, rotted remains of a 19th-century prospector's outfit. Its bony fingers were resting on one of the checker pieces, as if it had been interrupted mid-move. Propped against the wall behind it was a pickaxe. Its wooden handle rotted away. Its iron head a lump of rust. This was another lost soul. Another story that had ended here. I backed away from the cave slowly. This was not the place. Not solitude. This was just another lonely grave. I was about to continue my climb when I saw it. On the ground just outside the cave entrance was a single postcard. It was face down. My hand shaking, I picked it up. The picture on the front was of the very cave I was standing in front of. I flipped it over. The handwriting was not Eleanor's. It was a rough, masculine scrawl. The message read, "Martha, I have found the silver. The vein is rich. I will be home by Christmas. We will be rich. The game is good here. I am winning." The postcard was not addressed. It was not stamped. It had never been sent. It was a letter of hope from a man who had died mid-game, over a century ago. This place, it didn't just take you. It gave you what you wanted. It gave you a peaceful game, a quiet place, a rich vein of silver. It gave you a reason to stay. It gave you a perfect, final, and fatal contentment. I left the postcard where I found it and continued my climb, a new, more terrifying understanding dawning on me. I wasn't just looking for a place. I was looking for a trap. A beautiful, peaceful, and utterly deadly trap. I finally summited the ridge below the main peak as the sun was beginning to set. I looked down into the valley on the other side. And I saw it. It was not a town of houses and streets. It was a small, perfect, and impossible valley. It was a bowl of lush, green grass, dotted with groves of golden-leafed aspen trees. A clear, calm stream wound its way through the center. The light here was soft and warm, as if it were perpetually late afternoon. It was a pocket of eternal autumn, a place outside of time. And scattered throughout the valley were small, simple, rustic cabins. Maybe a dozen of them. A thin wisp of smoke rose from the chimney of each one. In the center of the valley there was a single, larger building. A simple, wooden structure with a porch and a sign that I could just barely make out through my binoculars. It read, "The Solitude Emporium." This was it. I had found it. I had followed the postmarks to the end of the map. I began my descent into the valley, my heart a chaotic mix of terror and a terrible, soaring hope. As I got closer, I saw people. An old man sitting on the porch of his cabin smoking a pipe. A woman tending a small garden of late-season vegetables. They moved slowly, peacefully. Their faces were calm, serene. They looked up as I approached, and they smiled. gentle, welcoming, and utterly vacant smiles. I walked down the main, dusty path towards the general store. The air here was warm and smelled of wood smoke and damp earth. There was no wind. And there was no sound. No birds. No insects. The only sound was the soft crunch of my own boots on the dirt. I reached the general store. The door was open. I stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, filled with shelves of canned goods, tools, and dry goods. It looked like a museum exhibit. And behind the counter, polishing a glass jar with a clean white cloth, stood my wife. She looked up as I entered. She was not surprised. She was not shocked. She just smiled. A calm, gentle, and completely unfamiliar smile. "Eleanor," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Hello, Daniel," she said, her voice the same, but the melody of it was gone. It was flat, peaceful, and empty. "I was wondering when you'd get here. The coffee's on. I saved you a cup." She gestured to the counter where 2 steaming mugs of coffee sat, waiting. Just for me. Seeing her was like being struck by lightning. She was real. Solid. She was not a ghost or a memory. She was my Eleanor. But as I looked closer, I saw the wrongness. Her eyes, which had always been so full of life and a fierce, intelligent light, were now calm and placid, like the surface of a still, deep lake. The small, worried frown line she always had between her brows was gone. She looked peaceful. And it was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. "Elle," I said, taking a step forward. "What is this place? What happened to you?" "I got lost," she said simply, her voice a calm, even monotone. She placed the jar she was polishing back on the shelf with a soft click. "And then I was found. This place, it found me. It's quiet here, Daniel. No more noise. No more worry. Just peace." She gestured again to the coffee cup. "Sit," she said. "You've had a long journey. You must be tired." Her kindness was a disarming weapon. My exhausted body, my grieving heart, yearned to accept. To just sit down, drink the coffee, and let the quiet of this place wash over me. To let it take the pain away. But I thought of the skeleton in the cave, his hand frozen on a checker piece. I thought of the unsent postcard. A message of hope that had become an epitaph. This place didn't just offer peace. It offered an end. "I'm not here to stay, Eleanor," I said, my voice firmer now. "I'm here to take you home." For the first time, a flicker of something other than placid calm crossed her face. It was confusion. "Home," she repeated, as if the word were a foreign object. "But this is home now. It is for all of us." "All of us." She nodded towards the door. I turned and looked out at the valley. The other residents, the old man with the pipe, the woman in the garden, had all stopped what they were doing. And they were all watching us with the same gentle, smiling, and utterly vacant expressions. They were the other lost souls. The hiker from the 70s. The prospector from the 1890s. All the people who had walked into these mountains and had never walked out. They had all found their way to solitude. They were lost, just like me, Eleanor's flat voice explained from behind me. They were tired of the noise. The forest heard them. It gave them a quiet place. It gave them a new story. "What story?" I asked, turning back to her. "A simple one," she said. "A story without an ending. A story where you just are. You tend your garden. You smoke your pipe. You polish your jars. The days are the same. The seasons never change. There is no past to regret and no future to fear. There is only the quiet, peaceful now." I finally understood. This was a sanctuary. A beautiful, bespoke prison for souls who were tired of the struggle of life. The forest, the entity, whatever it was, it didn't hunt them. It recruited them. It offered them an escape, a perfect, gentle, and eternal stagnation. And it was slowly erasing the woman I loved. The postcard had warned me. It's getting harder to remember your face. The memories of her old life, her old love, her old self were a form of noise in this quiet place. And the quiet was slowly, patiently scrubbing them away. "I won't let it have you," I said, my voice a low growl. I'm not leaving without you. I took a step towards her, my hand outstretched. She took a step back. Her calm expression finally broke, replaced by a flicker of something I recognized, fear. But she wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid for me. You don't understand, Daniel, she pleaded, her voice regaining a hint of its old urgent melody. You can't take me. The protocol doesn't allow it. This place, it's a balance. A story for a story. A soul for a soul. If you take me from this place, the story becomes unbalanced. The quiet will be broken. And you will have to leave something of equal value in my place. A soul for a soul. A trade. Then it can have me, I said without hesitation. Eleanor shook her head, a real, desperate sadness in her eyes now. No, she whispered. It doesn't want you. Not like that. You are not lost. You are not tired. Your story is still too loud, too full of hope and anger and love. You are not a candidate for solitude. You are an intruder. And it will not trade for something it does not want. As she spoke, the air in the store grew cold. The warm, pleasant smell of wood smoke was replaced by the damp, earthy smell of the deep forest. The other residents of the valley, who had been watching from a distance, began to walk slowly, deliberately, towards the general store. They were no longer smiling. Their faces were blank, their eyes empty, and they moved with a slow, shambling, unified purpose. They were the guardians. The antibodies of this quiet place converging on the infection. On me. You have to go, Eleanor urged, her voice full of a genuine, terrifying panic. Now, before they get here. You broke the protocol by finding this place. If you break it further by trying to take me, it will not just erase you. It will unmake you. The figures were at the door now, a silent, placid, and terrifying crowd. I looked at my wife. At the woman I loved, her soul being slowly bleached away by an ancient, compassionate monster. And I looked at the silent, approaching crowd. I had a choice. To stay and fight for her, and in doing so be unmade, my story scattered to the winds. Or to leave to save myself, and in doing so, leave her to be forever lost in the quiet, peaceful hell of solitude. I love you, Elle, I whispered. I know, she whispered back, and for a fleeting, heartbreaking instant, I saw the woman I married in her eyes. I am forgetting. But I know I did. Now go. Live a loud life for both of us. I turned and ran. I pushed through the silent, unresisting crowd of the lost. They did not try to stop me. They just watched me go, their faces empty. I ran from the store, from the valley, from the town of solitude. I did not look back. The hike out was a blur of terror and grief. But the forest let me go. The compass worked. The GPS found a signal. The path was clear. I had made my choice. The balance was maintained. I was found by a park ranger at the trailhead 2 days later, dehydrated and incoherent. I tried to tell them. I showed them the postcards, which I still had in my pack. They saw it as proof of my delusion, a story my grieving mind had concocted. I live my life now. A loud life, as she asked. I fill it with noise, with people, with work, with anything to keep the quiet at bay. But the peace I have is a hollow one. Because I know that she is still out there. In a small cabin in a valley that isn't on any map. She is living a simple, peaceful, and empty story. And I know that with every passing day, her memory of me fades a little more. And sometimes on quiet nights I think about sending her a postcard. But I never do. Because I know the address. And I know with a certainty that breaks my heart every single day that there is no mail service that can deliver a letter to a place that only exists in the hearts of the hopelessly and permanently lost. Thank you for listening to this report from the Wilderness Protocol. There are many ways to be lost. Some can be found on a map. Others can only be found in the heart. The cruelest protocol of the wilderness is that sometimes the only way to save yourself is to leave the one you love behind. If this testimony has served as a necessary warning, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more declassified files. Be careful of the quiet places. And be careful of the peace they offer. It often comes at an unimaginable price,